Okay, so coming to a nice lovely part of the day. I'm going to invite our next speaker up, who's Brid Horan, who is the Irish Cancer Society, the board of directors. The Brid does a huge amount of work around the whole. Chairperson of the board of directors of the Irish Cancer Society, herself and her colleagues. The board is like the governance that keeps everything on the track. Huge amount of work, probably unseen, but hugely important, and we really thank you for that, Brid. So, Bula Boss or Brid Horan, please.
Thanks, Eddie, and thanks to yourself for your handling of the day. It's really great to be back in person with this event. It's a very important event in the calendar of the Irish Cancer Society. So on behalf of the board, I'm delighted to welcome those who are here in person and to say good afternoon to those who are watching online. There's a sense of relief, I think, in being able to actually connect with people and talk to people in person. But that relief is also tinged with the realization that actually COVID is still a very big issue in all our lives, and even bigger, obviously, for some who are still very nervous, and rightly so, and rightly cautious. That said, I think there is a sense of hope that it is under more control than it was over the last few years. And of course, internationally, we have a sense of doom when we look at what's happening in Ukraine, that senseless war and the killing and suffering that is going on. And in recent days, indeed, the tragedy that has befallen Pakistan. So it's a time of great uncertainty, and I think being able to come together and support each other, as we do in the Irish Cancer Society, is really important when we have such uncertainty all around us. So I'm delighted to be here this afternoon on behalf of the board and to connect with you who are here in, dare I say it, the Burlington Hotel. I know it's not the Burlington anymore, but for those of us of a certain age, I think it'll always be the Burlington. And when you're wondering which Clayton am I supposed to go to, the answer is, it's the old Burlington. But anyway, nice to connect with you here, and also to connect with the hundreds of people who are watching online all around Ireland. And I think that's one of the good legacies, as it were, from COVID, that we have learned to actually communicate really effectively online, and I hope people are benefiting from that. The Irish Cancer Society is a genuine society, it's a real community. Eddie said earlier on, it's a bit of a tribe, and I think we are, because it's an organisation that is for all of those who are affected by the cancer journey, whether they're on that journey directly or sharing the journey as a family member or a friend or a colleague. And indeed, we're also there to try and prevent other people having to take the first steps on that journey. So the work of prevention, the work with people who are going through the journey, and the work with survivors, all of that makes up the work of the Irish Cancer Society. I'd like to say a word of thanks to all of the staff and the team of volunteers that have been here to actually make this event possible today. It's a great event, but it takes a lot of work, as you can imagine. So well done to everybody who has helped out here on the day, but also to everybody involved in the organisation of it. And one of the benefits of producing something that is online means that we have a resource, recorded sessions, that you can dip into, and the links will be sent to you so that you can actually re-watch or maybe share them with somebody else who wasn't able to take part today. So a great resource for us all now and into the future. As I said, this conference, Living Well with and Beyond Cancer, really is at the heart of what we do in the Irish Cancer Society. And that content and connection are both really important. It's also really important as an occasion for us to learn from you, so that it helps the staff and the board to better serve the needs of those who are on the journey, and indeed of survivors. Because that's what we're about. We really want to make sure that our work is helping those who are affected. You will be contacted, and I have an ask of you. You will be contacted, whether you're attending in person or online, for feedback on the conference. And please do take the few minutes to give us some feedback. You know, what was done right, what could be improved, and in particular, what you might like to see or hear at a future event. So please do spend the few minutes when you get that ask of us. As I said, I want to thank the people who are on hand today, but I also want to thank the sponsors of this event for their generosity. A lot of work in the Irish Cancer Society goes into fundraising, and we are incredibly grateful to all our fundraisers and to our donors, because without that we couldn't do what we do. But today's event was strongly supported by the sponsors who have been mentioned already, and I really do want to call out our thanks to them. The Access Foundation, Janssen Oncology, Roche, Pfizer, and Bristol Myers Squibb. It is wonderful to see such companies actually supporting our work. So I'll wrap up by saying that I hope you've had both an informative and hopefully an enjoyable day. That you leave, whether it's in person or online, with a renewed sense of self and of the practical supports that are available to sustain you on your journey. I'm going to hand you back to Dr. Eddie Murphy. As I said, he's been doing a wonderful job again this year, and we're very grateful to him for that, in bringing his own gems of wisdom to the day and indeed his warm personality. And like you, I'm looking forward to the conversation which is to follow with Nikki. We discovered that we share a village in common, but I leave her to bring her own personality, her own warm personality and experience to you. And thank you again to everyone.
Super. Thanks again to Brid, Horan, and all the board who do such wonderful work. We're going to bring up our next speaker, Nikki, and before we do that, I'm going to get you to stand again, and we're going to do all our sort of new exercises, right, that we've been all learning. Now, I'm planning to fall off this stage by the end of the day, but if you see me. So let's take a little, so Nikki will bring you up, and we'll just take a stretch out, so we will, and we'll do one of them nice deep breaths, and out in front. God, I'm just copying that man earlier on, you know what I mean, and back, and such a powerful day of, you can have a little seat now, a powerful day of, you know, we started off this morning, we talked about having conversations, having connections, having a community, having been involved in this little tribe, this important thread that is between everybody today. And but we want you to leave too with hope as well, because I think hope, if you know, in Pandora's box, hope was the last thing, yeah, and hope is so powerful. So we're going to have a number of stories of hope as well. And this is Nikki Bradley. Let's welcome Nikki.
Hi, everyone.
Please.
Good to see you again, Eddie.
Good to see you, Nikki. It's a good few years since we saw each other.
It is.
And, well, Nikki, I'm not sure would our audience know Nikki Bradley. So maybe if you could just tell these wonderful people who you are, that would be fabulous.
God, where do I begin? First of all, hi, my name is Nikki Bradley. I'm a Donegal woman, motivational speaker and adaptive adventurer. I am a lover of the outdoors. Obviously, I'm a cancer survivor, and I actually met one of the first Ewing's patients here today. It's the actual power of this room and this conference. I've only met 3 other Ewing's survivors in my entire life, and I was diagnosed 20 years ago, and today I met one other person. So I think that speaks for itself, that what this conference has done, bringing people like us together, is unbelievable. And yeah, we found out we have loads in common. Yeah, I am currently recovering from a very unusual surgery. I had a rotationplasty in February of this year. This stemmed from many years of dealing with the side effects to cancer. So when I had my tumour removed in 2002, I had chemotherapy and radiotherapy, and for me, the radiotherapy did a huge amount of lasting damage. Yet, I think it's funny that at the time, I was given very little information about the radiotherapy. It was just, it's precautionary, let's get it done. It didn't hurt. It was 20 minutes a day, every day for 6 weeks. And as a result of those short little amounts of radiotherapy every day, I ended up having to have 2 hip replacements. Basically, the laser going into the bone in my hip destroyed the bone eventually, and unfortunately that led to 2 hip replacements, both of which eventually failed. So I found myself having to make a really difficult decision last year to secure my future. So lockdown is very difficult for everybody. For me, it was really difficult from a pain point of view when I didn't have access to the services that I'd been so heavily relying on. Exercise is one of them. I would have been a regular gym goer, and when they all closed during lockdown, my pain went through the roof. Almost overnight, I started experiencing quite a lot of pain in my neck and my lower back. And I eventually saw a specialist who said that the pain was actually coming from, the back pain was secondary. The pain was all stemming from what was going on in my hip. And if I didn't do something about it, it would get worse. So I had to do some strong thinking and planning, and we eventually decided that a rotationplasty would be the best option. You can't see under this dress, but most of you, if not all of you, will not know what a rotationplasty is. It's essentially a form of amputation where they remove, in my case, they removed the hip, which was the problem area, and they removed my upper thigh. They made use of the good part of my leg, which was my lower leg, rotated it 180 degrees and reattached it. So I urge you all to Google it later. Maybe don't do it now because you'll be horrified and we'll hear all the noises, the gasping. But it's as scary as it looks, and even when I Googled it myself, I was quite shocked at the fact that this is even available. It's an incredible operation, and I'm so lucky that I was able to have it. The only downside is... Thank you. The only downside, and the only reason that it's not more popular on this side of the world is genuinely because of how it looks. So we're so vain over here that we won't have more of them. But by the end of October, I will be fitted with a prosthetic leg, and it will allow me to go back up the mountains and doing all the things that I used to love doing. And eventually, as I get a little bit older, I won't have all the problems that I was having during lockdown. I've secured, I suppose in some ways, secured my future by making that one difficult decision. So yeah, that's me.
Wow, that's a really powerful testimony, isn't it? I mean, I know you said I'll go into that in a minute, but you said you're an adapted adventurer.
Yeah.
Now, for the group here, tell people, because you have really, you put that flag out there about that you're not going to submit to anything.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks to these lovely pink things beside me. These are called side sticks. If you ever need crutches, I highly recommend them. This is what's allowed me to do all the things that I love doing. Adaptive adventure is basically somebody that seeks adventure despite the fact that they are differently abled. So for me, if it wasn't for my crutches, I wouldn't be able to do anything. I wouldn't be able to actually get off the stage without them. I so happen to love things like hiking, any type of endurance events. I took part in my first somewhat race since my operation. I participated in a half marathon there last weekend. I only did 8 or 9K. I didn't do the full thing.
No, Nikki.
But
9K, about 8 weeks after your surgery or something.
Well, no, my surgery is in February, but yeah.
Yeah, very quickly after your surgery.
Yeah, it was.
But before that now, right, come on, you're hiding your light here a little bit. You've a list of sort of boxes you've ticked when you...
It sounds boastful when I just list it, but okay, if you insist.
Go on. Because I know, but our group are...
Okay, so some of the things. So I set up a campaign in 2013 called Fighting Fit for Ewings, and the basis around the campaign was that I would put myself through various forms of agony for the benefit of others and for myself. So I wanted to take part in physical challenges for a couple of reasons. One, to see what the body is capable of, regardless of what you're able to do, regardless of whatever disability you have, and regardless of your fitness levels. I wanted to see what the body could do with the right mindset. So we started very simply in 2013. I went from not training at all, not doing any form of exercise, to training 3 times a week. We did this for 3 months, and at the end of that 3 months, I was able to go off all pain medication. And at that time, I was relying very heavily on medication just for everyday life. I was in that much pain. So to see such a huge result from exercise alone was incredible, and it really spurred me on. But we didn't want to just limit ourselves to the gym, and we wanted to see what we could do outside. So in October of that same year, I climbed my first mountain as an adult. It was Muckish Mountain in Donegal. A hike that should have taken about an hour and a half took us 6. Because we got lost. We picked the worst day of the year to climb it, and we had driving winds and rain, and it was, to say it was a challenge is an understatement. But what I learned in that first challenge and that first session of hiking has stayed with me to this day. There were so many times I wanted to give up. I had blisters on my hands, my shoulders were in bits from using the crutches, and I was in agony, but I felt so proud of myself by the end of that first day. And that was where I really realised what you can do with the right mindset. And obviously from there, the only way was up. So we picked bigger mountains, bigger challenges. I took part in a 4-peak challenge in 2018. I became the first female, possibly the first person in general, to climb 4 Irish mountain peaks in Ireland on crutches in 32 hours. It was harder than I anticipated, but again, it was an amazing challenge. I learned so much. I did a world record attempt in Holland, the Fan Dance in Wales, which is a 24-kilometre trek up and down in the Beacon Mountains, up and down the Penny Fan. And what else have I done? A number of things, mainly around mountains and hiking and endurance stuff. I love trying to push myself further and seeing what I learn in that process. And I love being around like-minded people as I do so.
Okay, quirky question time now, sorry. I assume you rest up. You're not like doing a time, like you actually take mini rests as you go up.
Oh yeah, so for the
Thank
four,
God,
for the four.
I just want a bit of a human bit going on, you know.
But rests as in to take a drink and
Yeah.
then you keep going. It's not any longer than that, because if you do stop for too long, the body seizes up. So actually, resting too much can have a downside effect. So with the 4 peaks, the first mountain we did was the biggest in Ireland, Carrauntoohil. We started at 6 in the morning, and that hike took us 8 hours. That was exhausting. I was done for the day when I came back down, but we still had 3 more mountains to go. So that the mental strength I needed for that particular event was unbelievable. And because it was such a big event, the training was really difficult, because obviously I live in Donegal and Carrauntoohil is nowhere near Donegal, so I was only able to actually recce it once beforehand. So I was going in to the relatively unknown, but there was something kind of exciting about that. You know, with Carrauntoohil, there's 2 different ways you can go. You can go up Devil's Ladder, which is basically, it involves almost like bouldering your hands and you're scrambling the whole way up, or you can go a different route, which we were recommended to do. When they saw that I was on crutches, they told us to stay away from Devil's Ladder. They just assumed I couldn't do it. And there's one thing with me, if you tell me I can't do something, then I will find a way to do it. So the first time we tried it, we did go the other way, but to me, that didn't seem to make sense. The route brought us away from the mountain, whereas when I looked at Devil's Ladder, it just brought us straight up. So in my head, it was like, well, logically, it makes sense, just go up and hope for the best. So on the day, that's the route we actually chose, and it was incredible. It was so much more exciting. So yeah, it was one of those that we obviously, when we got to the top of Devil's Ladder, there was a lot of resting.
Wow.
And then straight on up to the
It's
to the
really
top.
powerful stuff. Now, you talk about mental strength. Obviously, you have huge mental strength, but you've also faced a lot of adversity as well. So you can take us back to the early adversity you faced, because that would be different as a child versus your teenager versus adulthood and stuff like that.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, I was lucky in that when I was diagnosed, I was a teenager. So I had a normal childhood, and then at 16, I was just turning 17 the following January. That's when I was hit with my diagnosis. So instantly, like as everybody that's in this room knows, when you're given a diagnosis, instantly your life changes, and you'll never forget the words. You'll never forget everything about it. I still remember exactly what my doctor was wearing. I still remember what I was in my school uniform when I found out. I never went back to school. It was the last day I ever wore that uniform, and that's an example of how drastically my life changed. So for that following year and a half, myself, my family, and my friends, I have 2 amazing friends here in front of me, Sarah and Liz. I'm mortifying them now, calling them out. But I was so lucky I had an unbelievable support group around me, and that's what was required. I needed that. I needed to feed off them to get the strength to actually go through the physical sides of being hit with that diagnosis. You know, you don't just sit back afterwards and process it. You have to get up every day and go to your treatments. For me, living in Donegal meant once a month I travelled to St. Vincent's and stayed there for a week. There's a huge amount of organising that goes into that, and everyone around me was affected by that. But I think over time, the fear goes away and the routine sets in. So once you get used to having cancer, it becomes about, right, this week I have chemo, and then it's all about logistics, and that's how I found it easier to cope, by focusing on that side of things rather than letting myself get caught up in the emotional parts. And yeah, I spent my late teens just fighting and fighting my way out, and thankfully I got out the other side and I was able to rejoin society and start setting really good goals for myself and, you know, getting back to normal life.
And them goals sound really important, because they're, you know, when you talk about grasping your way and fighting your way into, and you talked a little bit earlier on about that transition piece that's often forgotten about.
Yeah.
Maybe you could reflect a little bit on that for us, because I think
yeah. So I think and even when I was speaking with that lady with Ewing's, we were talking about the feeling when you're given the diagnosis and that time period between diagnosis and starting treatment. For me, I was diagnosed 2 weeks before Christmas, so I had a bit of a longer wait because there was about 2 weeks after Christmas before I could start. So I had about a month from diagnosis to starting of treatment. And in that month, first of all, it felt like about 5 years. It stretched so long. I was in my head so much. I was so worried, and it was the fear of the unknown. I was actually almost relieved to finally start my treatment, because then I was, you know, once you know exactly what you're facing, once you know what is expected of you, I actually think it becomes somewhat easier. And you're mentioning goals. You know, when I did come out the other side and I got the all clear, obviously we celebrated that and it was amazing. And thankfully I've been cancer-free ever since, touch wood. God, where is it? But when you come out the other side, for a lot of cancer patients, it's somewhat daunting, because you're kind of plucked from society when you're sick. And I think the closest that regular people can get to feeling that feeling was when the pandemic hit. The world stopped, and for a certain amount of time, everybody was in the same boat. Everybody knew what it felt like. Everything felt wrong. Everything felt different. And life just stopped. And that's what happens when you're hit with a diagnosis. Your old life just is on pause. So for me, I was in 5th year when I was diagnosed, and by the time I finished my treatment, all of my friends had left school and had gone on to college, but I didn't even have my leaving certificate. So I was a young woman facing the rest of my life with a good bill of health, thankfully, but with no idea of how to get back in. And thankfully, with a really good 1 or 2 people in the education system, they helped bring me back in and guide me and put me back on the path that I'd been taken off. And I think that's really important, because you can so easily get lost afterwards and not really know how to find your way back. And that's where setting goals, you know, my big goal when I got better was an educational goal. I wanted to get to university. That was just, I didn't want to only be a cancer survivor. And obviously being a cancer survivor is absolutely huge, but it doesn't pay the bills. I needed to find a way to actually, you know, have a life and have a career. And when I finally got to university down in Galway, that felt like such a huge and powerful tick off the list that I had. And I've been setting goals ever since, and it's been amazing.
Wow, yeah, that's just incredible. So that piece then that you sort of, to me, I'm listening about identity. That obviously your identity is bigger than your Ewing's, but that piece of how you got diverted from your identity, and then how you refound, and you have to really sort of recraft a new identity, really.
You do, and I think even if you didn't want to, it just naturally happens. You change so much through treatment and through everything that you go through. But I've always said cancer was the making of me. Like, that diagnosis put me on the right path and gave me a strength that I don't know if I would have been able to just have without it. Now, when I face any type of setback, I always think, well, is it as bad as this? Is it as bad as that? And the answer is always no. And that allows me to move forward with a sense of confidence that I really don't know if I would have had I not got sick. Like, my whole life has been improved, even though what I had to go through was, a really somewhat negative experience. What came from it was unbelievably positive, and the people I met along the way are still with me now. It's unbelievable.
That moving forward with confidence and your capacity to be able to reframe things, to look at adversity and say, how does this adversity now compare to where I was at? That's a really powerful message for a lot of people, how to reframe things. But you have faced this new adversity.
Yeah.
And that must have been a shock, was it?
It was. It's been a good few years since I've had a surgery. So from kind of start to finish, when I had my tumour removed, I had about maybe 3 years of good health. And then in 2006, in the space of basically an afternoon, I ended up in hospital. And fast forward a year after that, a year of incredible pain where I could barely move with the pain. They realised that my hip was starting to crumble, caused by the radiotherapy. And they felt that the only and the best option was a hip replacement. I was, I think, 21 at the time, and I always thought a hip replacement was something that old people have, but I've since learned that no, it's for everybody. That first hip replacement, the day after I woke up, that initial pain was gone, and I was so grateful, because it had been 2006 was, regardless of everything I faced, I'd still say 2006 was the most painful year of my life. It was really just horrendous, dealing with that pain every single day and not having an answer. Travelling up and down to St. Vincent's, where they did every test that they could do under the sun, and they couldn't understand why I was in so much pain. And it turns out that it was mainly nerve pain. And obviously, as a lot of people probably know, nerve pain is quite hard to detect. Like on the outside you can look completely fine, but on the inside you're just burning. So when I had that first hip replacement, I was okay again, and unfortunately it got infected a couple of years later, and I found myself having a second hip replacement, and I just, from there, things never really got back to where they should have been. Unfortunately, the bone was too badly damaged, again, from the original radiotherapy, that the prosthetic that they had attached to the bone, it didn't work, essentially. So I never got off the crutches. And that was a big one for me. This was in 2012. And I didn't realise how much I had been holding off from living my life until I was told that I wasn't going to get off the crutches. I realised then that I kept saying to myself, I'll do this when I get off the crutches. I'll climb that mountain, or I'll go on even fun trips. I'll go on that holiday when I get off the crutches.
So they were sort of symbolic in one way. You were using them.
I was using them as a crutch, like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? But they were something that I didn't want for a long time.
Yeah.
And then when I was told that my hip was too badly damaged for them to really do anything more with it, and that I would remain on the crutches, that was actually what I needed to hear. When I was faced with having these forever, then I was able to look at it from a different point of view. Rather than continuing to think I'll get off them and life will be better, I started thinking, well, what can I do as a crutch user? What can I do to actually embrace this new way of being? And that's where all the adventuring and the fun stuff started.
Okay. So it was like a level of acceptance then.
100%, yeah.
Yeah.
It was so important. Acceptance is really, really important, because before you get to that point, you keep hoping and wishing for this other part of your life. And for me, obviously, it was hoping I would get off the crutches, and I just kept wanting to be normal. And I felt like I wasn't normal as a crutch user. Sometimes I'd feel embarrassed, or I'd feel just various, like even ashamed at times, and I just wanted to feel like everyone else. And then when I was told I was going to stay on them, suddenly I actually wanted to stand out. It was strange, they gave me a confidence once I accepted them.
Right, interesting, yeah. See, tell us other nuggets then around this overcoming, some ways that you've overcome. So I can hear that this resilience is how people bounce back.
Yeah.
But for example, acceptance, you talked about being grateful.
100%.
Even though even after the day after surgery, you were grateful. You know, but tell us some other bits that you've learned, your lessons. Like if you were going to if we're to learn something, or if we're to take away some key points, what are the key ones, do you think, that we could take away from?
I think the main thing is your mindset. And obviously everybody's mindset is slightly different. And mine was very different before I got sick. I was quite stubborn, but I think the girls will admit I'm still very stubborn. But I had a certain way of thinking that was maybe just a little bit closed off. And through the full journey, like, it certainly didn't happen overnight, but from when I got my diagnosis to the present day, I'm continuing to learn how I can be as a person depending on my frame of mind. So, for example, like at the moment, I'm still in this moment. You know, I had my surgery in February, and this is the first time I've ever experienced life as an amputee. And I know that, you know, we had various discussions. I was getting sent pictures of the steps and of the ramps yesterday because I was a bit worried about how I'd actually get up onto the stage. Like, those are things I never had to think about before. And it would be so easy for me to let that become an issue and let that get too big. But because of my frame of mind, like, I'm not going to lie, it is, you know, walking on certain floors is quite scary at the moment. For me, though, the people around me and the people that I've met along the way have really helped. So when I was told that I will have this operation and I'll become an amputee, there's a man that has helped me. He's a 3-time cancer survivor, and he lost his leg at various stages each time he was diagnosed. But this man, he's from Holland. He's the guy that I did a world record attempt with. He used to be a Reebok-sponsored athlete. He used to do CrossFit. He still does CrossFit. This is all with one leg. He would do marathons, like full marathons. He climbed Ben Nevis. He did absolutely incredible things with, like, he doesn't have anything on this side. He's just one leg, so he lives everyday life. He has no option to have a prosthetic. He was never given that option because there's nothing to put into it. So he had to fully accept, this is who I am now. And I found him incredibly inspiring and reached out to him a number of years ago. And the advice that he gave me helped. You know, when I was given this news, the first person I contacted was him, because he knows what I'm feeling. He's hopped, I was going to say walked ahead of me, but he's hopped ahead of me. He knows exactly what I'm feeling. And I think it's so important for people in this room. Like, I think there's probably people here that come every year to this event, and then maybe there's a lot of people here for the first time. But knowing what other people are going through has really helped me. Like, being able to have a really open and honest conversation has really helped me along the way and given me a strength.
Well, Nikki Bradley, I think this is just incredibly powerful. I want to thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you for your insights. Keep going, keep pushing. That peer-to-peer, where you talked about that stuff that the Irish Cancer Society is very involved in terms of the peer-to-peer support as well.
Yeah.
So very powerful. Let's hear it for Nikki Bradley.
Thank you. Thank you.
Has anyone any comments or questions they'd like to ask Nikki? There's someone down at the back of the room. There's a couple of hands there. We'll take them, so we will. Just give us a moment to get a microphone to you.
My name is Mary Coyle, and I'm one of the ladies here that look after Donegal Cancer Flights and Services. So as a fellow Donegal woman, I want to applaud you, and you're an inspiration. We did have you in Gweedore talking to a group of young people, and you touched on it earlier on, and I'm sure it was harder when you were going through your treatment, but the challenges that are faced by cancer patients travelling from Donegal to Dublin, it is huge. And it's not just that they are coming up to be diagnosed or further treatment, it's also the financial strain that's on these families. And I don't think Donegal people are supported enough. And we advocate for it all the time. And Nikki, I would love to ask you to advocate with us.
I will.
Yeah, well,
I totally agree. And I think, like, obviously I'm very loyal to Donegal, and I obviously know firsthand what it was like to have to go up and down that road. But what I will say is that is common around Ireland, that we're so lucky that we have great facilities in Dublin. The downside is that Dublin is in Dublin, that we, you know, it's not on our doorstep, and it's really difficult. And I totally agree about the expense. You know, there's so many elements to a diagnosis that we don't think about at the start, and it's extremely daunting. But the likes of the Irish Cancer Society have so many different availabilities, different things that will help. So I would recommend that if you haven't already, reach out and ask for help, because why not?
That's it. Thank you very much. And any other
Thank you.
questions or comments? We'll take them. Thank you.
I see another hand there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Hi, Nikki. My name is Amy, and I'm head of children, adolescents, and young adults in the Irish Cancer Society, which is a new role. But just what you were speaking about, being 16 in your school uniform, I just think that image of how your life has totally transformed at a very vulnerable age speaks volumes, and it's really a group that we want to help and support. So I'd love to have a conversation with you as well. Thank you.
Of course, yeah, because
Thank
it
you.
is like thank you. It's one of the strongest memories I have of that entire time was me and my dad sitting with my consultant, and me being, as I said, in my uniform, going straight from school, afternoon appointment on a Friday evening. Like, there's so many elements to that day that I remember, so many tiny little memories that of a day that changed my life forever. And for so many people that you work with, they're going to have that same experience. And it's not just terrifying for me as a 16-year-old, but for my family, like my mum and dad. As I said, it was 2 weeks before Christmas. They had to go home. I have a brother and sister. They had to go home and put on this, you know, happy face and try and get through Christmas. And that's a feeling that, you know, everybody here will understand, is having to try and push through. But it's something that's the strength that I was saying, that it's having to do stuff like that, having to face that adversity gives you the strength to face anything then moving forward. Thank you.
And it was a very powerful image, and it is, you know, when from psychology point of view, we look at that, it's a very vulnerable age, and it's called a flashbulb memory. Okay. And that's when a flashbulb memory happens in people's lives, they incorporate all the information of that particular moment. Yeah. And that's the particular name for it. It's called a flashbulb memory. Yeah. And people often have a couple of them in their lives, not many, and that's really what you're describing there. Yeah. Any other comments or thoughts? Okay.
Silence.
Well, listen, we're going to say thank you to Nikki then.
Thank you so much.
I'm going to bring up my next speakers, and we're going to do a little stage set. So I'm going to get you to stand up again. We're going to have a little fight, and with one more individual is going to come. So we're going to go down this way. And how about a stretch then? Are you going to do a star jumps now this time, okay? We'll get you to do a star jump. And we're going to then bring on our next speaker, who's going to give us incredible finish, I think, to the to our whole show. We're going to stand for this one, so we are. All the guys are getting rid of the chairs. Can we hear it one more time for Nikki, please? Yeah, Nikki Bradley. And now we're going to invite Pamela Tully on. Keep that clap going. And Pamela, you're very welcome to join us. We're going to, what do you call it? Pamela, you were going to get that microphone in your hand, and we're going to talk a little bit. I'm going to put this down.
Hi, Horan.
The lights are strong up here, aren't they, Pamela?
They are.
Yeah, you're well used to it, though.
But you're all looking great, though.
We're all great. So you can have 6 sheets again, all right? A little take. We'll give you a moment. And and you're our final speaker, Pamela. Fair play to you.
How do I follow that, by the way, Nikki? You're absolutely incredible.
Very, very well. Look, everybody has their
Everybody has a story.
And,
yeah.
Tell us a little bit about Pamela.
So, hi everybody. My name is Pamela Tully, and first of all, the first thing I will say, I'm going to sing a few songs for you today. I was first contacted by the Irish Cancer Society to sing, and evidently then started chatting to the guys that are organising this incredible event, and spoke to them about a little bit of what happened to me throughout the pandemic. So I had a very interesting pandemic. We were in the middle of our second lockdown, so in June June 2020. I suppose like millions of people across the world, I was at home trying to work from home with a 1-year-old child at the time. I was doing my master's at the same time at night time, and I was diagnosed with a brain tumour. Basically, I was getting headaches, and I went to my GP. Now, headaches, nothing more than something I could take a paracetamol for and just keep going. Thankfully, my own GP sent me for an MRI, and I was diagnosed with a grade 2 meningioma, non-cancerous, but something that's called atypical, which basically means that it has a higher percentage rate of recurrence. So very, very shocking diagnosis. Wasn't expecting it. Didn't really know what to do with that information. Fast forward 5 months later, I was whisked into Beaumont Hospital, thankfully, and was with a fantastic surgeon there, Mr. Stephen McNally. And fast forward 5 months, and unfortunately, it had grown and it needed to come out. So at that stage, I didn't actually know what it was. We thought it was a meningioma, but you do not know until it actually comes out. So I had to have brain surgery in November 2020. And had to go into Beaumont Hospital on my own because of lockdown, say goodbye to my husband at the door, my 1-year-old at the time. So it was quite traumatic, but thankfully I had a very successful surgery and it was completely removed. And then I was basically whisked into this kind of recovery mode, if you like, for the next, I'm coming up to nearly 2 years now. So yeah, it was an interesting time.
It was a strange time for,
Yes.
I'm sure for many people too, that were going into their appointments without their loved ones and support. Like, that's a huge piece, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's very, very difficult because you're in this unknown. You don't know what's going on, what's next for me. I was kind of given the option, we can watch and wait, which a lot of the time when you get a brain tumour diagnosis, it's we'll watch it, we'll scan you, we'll see what happens, and if it grows, we might, decide on treatment then. So it was very unknown, and then we're in the middle of a pandemic as well. So what I will say is, family and friends were amazing, and I spent countless hours on Dr. Google, which I would not recommend to anybody, but I couldn't help it. I just needed information. And it was just it was a really strange time, and I talk about it now as if it was somebody else, because I was very, very lucky in that they caught it early and I was able to have the surgery, but my recovery was definitely a different story.
Okay.
Found the recovery very, very difficult. I kind of had this sense that as soon as I had the surgery, I was just going to be, that's it, it's done. I'm going to just get back to normal life. I'm going to go back to work. I remember having a conversation with my HR director at the time saying, I'll see you in January. This is going to be fine. And it was definitely not that. I had a lot of seizures after the brain surgery, which was eventually controlled, but it took about a month. So I just wasn't expecting it. The fatigue, if anybody has gone through something similar, it's not a tiredness, it's a fatigue, and it's so different. It's something that I didn't really realise this beforehand, but your brain is controlling so many things in your body. So even when you're trying to sleep, it's putting all of those endorphins and chemicals into your brain to help you sleep. So it's like as if your recovery is even harder because your brain is trying to do the normal things as well as recover from a major surgery. And I underestimated that.
Well, I've no doubt this room will understand fatigue because it's one of the huge areas. And I suppose I'm hearing too that some people are information seekers. I don't think
I didn't even notice that either.
Some people are information seekers, and some people are information blockers. That's something that you probably figure out which are in your pathway. So you're a seeker.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a bit like the Harry Potter, where they go in and you have the seeker going around getting involved. And other people are blockers, they don't want to know. And there's different pathways for different people. So that because this is about overcoming, I suppose. This is like one of the things then is you realise that about a dream as well. Tell us a little bit about that.
So prior to all of this, I've always sang. I've sang up and down the country in wedding bands for probably 15 years. And I was always saying, I'm definitely going to do my own songs. I'm definitely going to get there at some stage. And another year would go by and I hadn't done it. And then another year would go by and I still hadn't done it. I kept putting it off because life gets busy, as everybody knows. And I had a small child and who's now a toddler. And I just kept putting it off. And then when this happened, I was like, if I don't do this now, I am never going to do it. And one of the things I forgot to mention earlier on, because of the location of the tumour, it was on the left-hand side and I'm right-handed, and it was in an area that could have had an effect on my speech. So I was facing into this surgery not knowing whether or not I was actually going to be able to speak properly afterwards. Was I going to need to have speech therapy? I didn't know. So when I woke up and everything was okay and I found out it was gone, also the fact that I was still able to speak and sing was just unbelievable. My biggest fear was that I'm not going to be able to speak. I'm going to have to go to speech therapy, and what do I have to do now? And I sing every weekend. My job is all about speaking. So what do I do? So when that didn't happen, thankfully, I said now or never, I have to do this. So one of the songs that I'm going to sing for you today is actually my own song. And it is one that I wrote, part of it actually sitting in Beaumont, waiting to go in and see my consultant. So it's definitely a story of my diagnosis and my recovery. So for anybody that has had a traumatic diagnosis, I'm hoping that you can relate. So I think I'm realising a dream eventually.
And this is what it's all about. Living well and beyond. Pamela Tully, take the stage. Thank you very much.
You're broken down and tired of living life on the merry-go-round, and I hope you find that fighter, but I see it in you, so we're gonna walk it out and move mountains. We're gonna walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. And I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up, in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you. And the silence isn't quiet, and it feels like it is getting hard to breathe. And I know you feel like dying, but I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. We'll take it to its feet and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you. All we need is hope. And for that we have each other. And for that we have each other. Yeah. We will rise, we will rise, we'll rise. We will rise. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, In spite of the ache, I will rise 1,000 times again. And we'll rise up high like the day. We'll rise up in spite of the ache. We'll rise up and we'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you. We will rise, rise again. Thank you. I'm going to do the second one. This is the song. Thank you very much. This next song is actually the one I wrote, and it's called Just Like You. And hopefully, as I said earlier on, if anybody can relate to it, then my work here is done. So please enjoy. I heard that song ringing in my ear. I could feel you near. Will you protect me? I'm not sure what to do with this. Never felt this fear. I need saving when I get up off this floor. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna soar. 'Cause you know I am not sick anymore. I'm gonna get out, break through, stop hiding behind you. I'm gonna try to fix it like I do, but it's not true. I'm not perfect, I am just like you. In my altered state of mind, I know I'm tough and I can be unkind. I'm looking scared and feeling left behind. So now that I cry, here I am in the waiting room. Can't stand that view. I feel like faking. I don't know about you. I don't know what to do. I'm gonna lose my cool. And now I'm shaking when I just walk out this door. I'm gonna run, I'm gonna soar. 'Cause you know I am not sick anymore. I'm gonna get out, break through, stop hiding behind you. I'm gonna try to fix it like I do, but it's not true. I'm not perfect, I am just like you. In my altered state of mind, I know I'm tough and I can be unkind. I'm looking scared and feeling left behind. So now that I cry, I'll try. I don't know me anymore now. I'm alone and so low, so low. Ooh, I'm gonna try to fix it like I do, but it's not true. I'm not perfect, I am just like you. In my altered state of mind, I know I'm tough and I can be unkind. I'm looking scared and feeling left behind. So now that I cry, I'll try. Thank you. So guys, I'm going to leave you with this one. And we might get everybody up dancing, you never know. You just sing along with me if that's okay. Dr. Eddie has got the moves.
Moving going. We know that moving is medicine. So we'll get you all up and we're going to dance our way out of here. So we are. We're going to, just before you go, I'm going to say, we'll finish out in your song, so we will. But I want to thank everybody. I thank you all for coming. I want to thank our incredible, beautiful voice. Let's hear it for Pamela, right? Woo!
Thank you.
And I want to thank you all for coming. I hope you've got hope, connection, community, conversation, all the things that we endeavoured. And we're going to go out with a powerful song and with heart and hope in our heart and a good energy in our heart. And for people, please connect with the Irish Cancer Society. They're there 365 days a year. They're to support you. We're to support you as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Finish us out. Lovely. We'll dance.
You won't find him drinking at the table, rolling dice and staying out till 3. You won't ever find him being unfaithful. You'll find him next to me. You won't find him trying to chase the devil for money, pain, and power out of grief. You won't ever find him where the rest go. You'll find him next to me. Next to me. Ooh, next to me. Ooh, next to me. Ooh, you'll find him next to me. When the money's spent and all my friends have vanished, I can seem to find no help or love for free. I know there's no need for me to panic, 'cause I'll find him next to me. When the skies are gray and all the doors are closing, and the rising pressure makes it hard to breathe, and all I need is a hand to stop the tears from falling, I'll find him next to me. Here we go, you ready? Next to me. Ooh, next to me. Ooh, next to me. Ooh, you'll find him next to me. When the end has come and buildings falling down fast, when we spoiled the land and dried up all the sea, when everyone has lost their heads around us, you'll find him next to me. Next to me. Ooh, next to me. Next to me. Ooh, you'll find him next to me. Here we go, one more time. Next to me. Ooh, next to me. Ooh, next to me. Ooh, you'll find him next to me. Thank you very much.